أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآل محمد الأئمة والمهديين وسلم تسليما. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. My dear sister and companion Tiffany.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear Father.
God bless you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I think today I thought that it was important that we record this kind of response video or video that delves into the topic of a particular aspect of the will because of the number of times that this issue has been brought up. And most recently, I received a letter from one of the believers, an individual who lives abroad, who had stated that his parents had kind of, or a relative had argued with him concerning the legitimacy of the claims that we are making in this da'wah because of something that appears in the will of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Okay.
Now, I had thought that it was previously kind of tackled or this issue was addressed, but nonetheless, I think that it would be beneficial if we make this kind of episode to be the be-all and end-all of this topic, the final kind of response, or allow the believers that are watching from home to kind of have this response as a weapon against this accusation that pops up. And it pops up all the time, not just from family members, but also from the scholars of religion. And as the da'wah is spreading, more and more of the scholars throughout the world will point out this particular issue.
Okay.
So basically, the fundamental aspect or the foundation of our da'wah, of our call, is this idea that there's this will and that we are the only people that are upholding the will of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That nobody else is fulfilling his will, his desire, his last testament that he left for his nation, right? And we believe also that salvation is tied to obedience to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in all things and in carrying out his death wish, right? Or his final will, his final testament. And by holding on to it, we believe that we would not go astray, because the Prophet Muhammad on his deathbed, he said that, let me give you something which if you hold on to it, you will never go astray. So there's this divine promise that's attached to the obedience of the will, right? Or following through with the Prophet's last testament. It means that you will never go astray, right? Yeah. And we spoke about where is the will, and that's something that we have on our website. It's something that we have spent the last 10 years, going on 11 years, kind of speaking about over and over again. And basically the Prophet's will consisted of, it's the apparent will that's in the books of traditions. And it's this apparent will that consists of the names of all those individuals that are to succeed the Prophet Muhammad after him, right?
Yeah.
And so he basically calls Ali ibn Abi Talib close to him. He begins to dictate to him his will and tells him to write it down, right? And he begins to name the names that are exclusive to the Prince of the Believers, Ali ibn Abi Talib. He tells Ali ibn Abi Talib in the will that after him there's going to be 12 Imams, and then after that there will be 12 Mahdis. And then he proceeds to name the names of his successors one by one. Yes. Okay? And he says that you, O Ali, will be the first of them, the first of the 12 Imams, the first of my successors, right?
Yes.
And then he says, and if death approaches you, okay, then you pass it on to your son, Al-Hassan. And when death approaches him, he will pass it on to Al-Hussein. And when death approaches him, he'll pass it on to Ali Zayn al-Abidin. And it continues to go like that until we reach Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, yes. Right? Mm-hmm. Now, Imam al-Mahdi, he represents the final Imam from the 12 Imams. Yes. Okay? Mm-hmm. And then after him, his successors are the Mahdis, right? They're followers of Imam al-Mahdi. They're the disciples of Imam al-Mahdi. And so they're called, right, Mahdis. Yes. And so the the 12 Mahdis, it states in there, it says that when death approaches Imam al-Mahdi, let him pass it on to, right, his son, his successor, the first of the believers. And he has 3 names, and then it mentions the names of the first 3 Mahdis that come after Imam al-Mahdi.
Yes.
Okay, and then it goes on to say Abdullah, Ahmad, and the third is al-Mahdi.
Yes.
So the problem that the shubha, the confusion that is raised by the scholars and by those who don't believe in our claims is this little wording that says the death, right? When death approaches.
Yeah. I'm familiar with this. I've been asked about it as well. Like,
What do you say?
I mean, for me, it seems like a no-brainer because it is not a necessity, that somebody is deceased in order to pass on the will to the next person. I mean, we have many instances in the history of religion where somebody appoints their successor and they're both present in the world at the same time. Like, for example, Moses, he named his successor Aaron, and Aaron even acted as the guide for the people when Moses was absent. And there are other instances, like, for example, Jesus, he designated that Simon Peter be his successor, and they were both alive and present at the same time. So it doesn't necessarily mean that Imam al-Mahdi is deceased or no longer with us.
So I think that the issue that they're trying to point out when they raise this confusion is not that at the time of appointment that both of them be alive. I think that is a no-brainer in the sense that, like, obviously it would necessitate that he be alive while he names his successor. And the Prophet Muhammad he's on his deathbed, so he's still alive, right? While he's mentioning who his successor will be, and he already alluded to the fact on many occasions before that his successor would be Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. There's a plethora of narrations and hadiths where the Prophet Muhammad on various occasions, right, tells the Muslim nation that his successor is Ali ibn Abi Talib, and this begins right after the Isra wal Mi'raj, when he gets informed actually of the fact that Ali ibn Abi Talib is his successor on the night journey. And he does so in Ghadir Khum, he does so on other occasions, he does so in private, he does so in public. He mentions Ali ibn Abi Talib and emphasizes this many times. But the final declaration, so to speak, right, is when he puts it on paper in his final testament, right, his death wish, right, or his will. The issue then that's being brought up is that Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, it would necessitate for him to die before the next Mahdi takes reign. Okay?
Yes, okay.
So they're walking with us. They're like, okay, we agree that the Prophet Muhammad wrote a will. He would have to write a will. We agree to that. And the Shia, the 12 Shias would say, we agree that the 12 Imams are the legitimate successors of the Prophet Muhammad. We're with you there. And they would even, some of them would even go as far as saying this is a legitimate will. We believe in the 12 Imams, and we also believe in the 12 Mahdis, because it's written right there that after there will be Mahdis. And we have in our narrations, meaning in Shia narrations, many narrations where the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam speak about these Mahdis that are successors after the Imams. Our problem with you is that you are claiming that Ahmad al-Hasan alayhi salam came and he was appointed by Imam al-Mahdi, and you're claiming that you are appointed by Imam al-Mahdi, and you're out and you're active and you're speaking, on behalf of the Dawah, and you're on you're on the front, in front of the people, and you're claiming that you have some sort of infallibility, but that would necessitate that Imam al-Mahdi had passed away, because it says when death approaches that you appoint. Okay, so that means that, okay, Imam al-Mahdi would have to do all the things that we expect Imam al-Mahdi to do. The very least of them is to come out in public and that we all acknowledge who he is. And then when he dies, right, then you can come.
Yes.
And you can claim the will. And Ahmad al-Hasan can come and can claim the will. But for us, Imam al-Mahdi came and he just went into an absence. and he didn't do the things that he was supposed to do. And then you're saying that now Ahmed al-Hassan became a hujjah on the people, and now you're a hujjah on the people, or a proof on the people. That means that the will was activated. The will became active and valid and legitimate, and the passing had gone forth.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
Like it went now from Imam al-Mahdi's time to Ahmed al-Hassan's time to your time.
Yeah.
So this is the issue
Yes.
that they have. The key to resolving and understanding this thing is in the verse of the Quran in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, he says, and verily when God said to Jesus, I'm going to cause you to die, and I'm going to raise you to me, and I'm going to purify you from those who have disbelieved, right? Until the end of the verse. This is key, because the wording in cause to die is the same wording that we have in the will. Okay. You have different wordings, different words in the Arabic language that could signify death. You have maut, right? Yeah. Okay. You have qatl, right? And you have wafat. These are three different words, right? That all signify death. You have maut, which means, just to die. And it usually signifies like a normal death, like a person dying, for example, on his deathbed, or he dies of a particular sickness or a particular disease. You have the wording of qatl, which means to be murdered or to be killed, right? This could signify somebody who's a martyr who died, for example, in war or in a battle or something like this. And that's why the Quran, in another verse, it poses the question to the believers, and it says, that if the Prophet Muhammad was to die or be killed, right? It gives both of those options to kind of indicate that both of them are valid possibilities, right? So, but we find that when it comes to Jesus, it's not using the word maut, it's not using the word qatl, it's not using either of those words. It's not as saying, Jesus, if you're killed, or remember when God said to Jesus, I'm going to kill you, or cause you to be killed, or cause you to die in the sense of maut. It doesn't say that. Okay. It uses this other word, which is wafat. Wafat means literally to pass away, okay? To pass. And it's interesting because it's that word, not the other two words, that's also present in the will. And it's interesting because for Sunni Muslims and for Shia Muslims and even for Christians, okay? Even though the Christians believe that Jesus died on the cross, they believe it to be not a true death, that Jesus conquered death, that he raised from the death. The death has no power over Jesus, right? Yes. And the Muslims, they believe that he wasn't even crucified to begin with, that it was an illusion, that it was something else that took place, that actually Jesus is preserved and that he is alive, okay? And so something else then took place with Jesus. This wafat does not mean his literal death at the cross, but rather what it means is that he passes from life in this physical sense like he is, or this existence that he has, or a presence that he has with his disciples out in the open, that he goes away, that he's hidden now, that he's veiled from the majority of the people or the rest of the people. This is what takes place, right? So it's not a death in that. And right now he's actually alive, and he's alive. They believe that he's alive in his physical body, and they believe that he's going to come back again. And when he comes back, he's going to fulfill those things that he didn't do during his lifetime. And yet, even though they believe that he's alive, okay, and they believe that he wasn't killed or crucified, they believe that he appointed before he was veiled, or before he was raised, or before he was lifted, or before he was hidden or went into an absence. They believe that he appointed Simon Peter as his successor, and they believe that that is a legitimate appointment. And so the power passed on from Jesus to Simon Peter, even though Jesus remains alive and still has duties to fulfill.
Exactly, yeah.
And so the parallel is very clear that what takes place with Jesus, Imam al-Mahdi, is precisely the same. The word wafat, right, did not mean a physical death according to you, according to your own standards. That's what you believe in. And so if that is the case, then it is very viable, and it is a legitimate claim that we make that also Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, who lived not 2,000 years ago, but close to 1,200 years ago, when he was being chased by the Abbasid government, and they sought to slaughter him and to kill him. We believe that this wafat happened to Imam al-Mahdi too, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised Imam al-Mahdi. He veiled Imam al-Mahdi. He put him in an absence. Yes. He preserved Imam al-Mahdi, just like he preserved Jesus, just like they believe in some narrations that he preserved Al-Khidr even to this very day. And he preserved other prophets and messengers, such as Elijah, for example, right? Yeah. Or Enoch, when he was lifted up to the heaven. And so all of these individuals, wafat happened to them, whether they biologically, physically died or not. Yeah. And so before their appearances or their presence became veiled from creation, each and every one of them had an opportunity to name their successor. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. And the successor then went forth to the people, and he began to establish or use against them a proof, the fact that they were appointed by that individual. And so the son of Enoch, or the successor of Enoch, would have went forth. Obviously, not all peoples would have witnessed the appointment. He would have went forth, and he would have said that my father, before he died, or before he was raised into heaven, he appointed me. The same thing with Simon Peter. He went forth and traveled the lands and went all the way to Rome, to people that never even knew Jesus or saw Jesus or heard Jesus. And he presented to them the will of Jesus. He told them, I was appointed by Jesus, all right? Did Jesus die? No, Jesus didn't die, right? According to all three religions, right? Sunni Islam, Shia Islam, and Christianity. He conquered death. He's alive, or he was raised. And in all cases, the appointment of the successor was legitimate, because wafat, this veiling, this death from the presence of the people, was approaching. And so the same thing is true with Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. Same thing is true with Ahmad al-Hassan alayhi salam. Ahmad al-Hassan alayhi salam, he came in 1999, and he was with the people for a very long time, many, many years. What took place is that they sought to kill him. Yeah. They sought to murder him, just in the same way as they sought to murder and kill Jesus, just in the same way as they sought to murder and kill Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. Okay? Yes. And so what happened? Ahmad al-Hassan alayhi salam, he appointed his successor in the will, and for the past 10 years, going on 11 years, his successor has been out in the public speaking to the people. So are we saying that that I am a legitimate hujjah that's on the ground? Yes, I am. Is it my time to speak? Absolutely, it's my time to speak. Is the will active? It's active. Was I named? I was named. Did wafat happen to Ahmad al-Hassan or to Imam al-Mahdi? Yes, absolutely. Does that mean that they're dead? No, it does not mean that they're dead. It means that they are alive, but they are veiled right now from the public, and they have sent me forth. And we believe that, in just in the same way that the Muslims and the Christians believe that Jesus is going to return, and he's going to fulfill those things that he was meant to do that he didn't get to do during his lifetime. The same thing will take place with Imam al-Mahdi, Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam, as well as Imam Ahmed al-Hassan, the Yemeni.
Okay. Thank you so much for clarifying. I mean, I think that speaking as a non-Arabic speaker, this is something that I never would have noticed in the language. And there are many people who are like me, who are not native Arabic speakers, who wouldn't have noticed this important linguistic distinction of wafat and that specific meaning behind it, and how it connects the story of Jesus and the will of the Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah, I think it's really important because the English versions of the will, right, it just says if death approaches.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so a lot of people can be fooled and they can think like, okay, well, obviously we believe that Imam al-Mahdi is still alive. Even al-Sadiq himself is saying that Imam al-Mahdi is alive and that he didn't die. So how could it be then that, that Imam al-Mahdi already appointed Ahmed al-Hassan and al-Sadiq when death didn't even approach him yet? And the Prophet's clear instructions is that when death approaches, then appoint.
Yes.
And so now we have clarified, and I think we've established the ultimate proof over the people. I think that we can't get any clearer than this. And inshallah, the mud is removed from, and nobody's left with an excuse.
Okay. Thank you so much, Father.
God bless you. Thank you so much, Tiffany.